Whenever I think I know what I'm talking about when I talk about love, I think maybe I'm wrong. I wonder about this every Valentine's Day. I didn't come from love, no doting parents or grandparents, no cozy laps to crawl into for safety. I think just about everything I know about love started with a horse. It was it was 1952 and I was 7 years old, and my parents took me on an adventure. Long after midnight, we stole a silver gray stallion from Griffith Park stables in the heart of Los Angeles. My parents didn't want me to call them mom and dad. It made them feel really old. So they insisted that I call them Rose and George. That day, George came home crying. I never seen him cry before. He'd been at the stables earlier that day, and he'd seen a man who owned this beautiful stallion, and the man was riding the stallion and just beating him and torturing him. And in self-defense, the horse reared backward on the man and broke his back. And the horse was going to be sold the next day, killed the next day for horse meat, for dog meat, to become horse meat. And George said, I'm stealing that horse tonight. I'm bringing him to another stable where he's going to be safe. And Rose said, oh, this is an adventure. We are all going. And so George borrowed an old black Dodge, I think it was, and a horse trailer. And on our way to Griffith Park stables, George and Rose were giddy with laughter. I had never seen them like that before. Well, when we got to the stables, everything was quiet and still, and the moon above was so full and so white and so huge that it made our shadows sort of long and indigo blue. When we got to the front row of darkened stalls, George flipped on a switch on one of them, and this horse just rose up in a flash, and with his ears flat against his head and his neck curved in a cobra's arch, he looked ready to strike. And he backed up and he moved forward like he was just gonna charge. And George walked into the stall. And then he spoke to the horse in a voice he never used with Rose and me. Easy, baby. Nobody's ever gonna hurt you again. Rose and I were outside the stall, and she had a big bunch of carrots, and I took a few and walked into the stall, and George said, yeah, come in. Move to the side of the horse. Don't move fast. Don't scare him. It was hard to believe anything so huge could be afraid of me. And when I looked at him, I knew we had the same heart. We both knew what it means to be afraid and have no place to go. The horse stopped moving. He dropped his head low and looked right at me. And George said, look at what that fucker did to him with those spurs. On the side of the horse, there were strips of skin hanging, and the blood beneath was dried, looked almost black. And I reached out my hand to touch the horse, and his body shuddered. And then the horse stepped closer and closer to me. And he put his muzzle on my head and took deep breaths in and deep breaths out, and Rose said, "Come back, you'll get hurt." I didn't move. I knew he would never hurt me. I knew he was choosing to be kind to me. I rested my head on his shoulder, and I put my hand on his side, and I could feel his heartbeat slow beneath my fingertips. And with my other hand, I gave him carrots, and he took them very gently, nibbled them delicately. And Rose said, "He loves you." It took us a long time to get the horse out of the stall, and then I walked beside him step by step and gave him sugar cubes every step of the way to lure him into the trailer. Before we got into the truck, Rose put her arm around me. She hadn't done that for a long, long time. Not since she held her stillborn boy in her arms. My baby brother. She whispered, "We saved him." And she hugged me. There were tears in her eyes when she said, This is your new brother." And I said, "Can we call him Silver?" And she said, "No. See that moon up there? That's a gypsy moon. His name is Tesoro. That means King of the Gypsies." When we got in to the truck, Rose pulled me onto her lap, said, "We saved him." And she hugged me again and said, "We're gypsy horse thieves." And then she started singing. "Oh, oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny." And George joined in, but we'll travel along, singing our song side by side. I didn't know the song, but we were together. We saved a horse, and he loved me. That's all that mattered. What if the sky should fall? As long as we're together, it doesn't matter at all. And so we sang, and Rose hugged me, and that old black Dodge just rattled along the long blue road to safety.